के गर्नुहुन्छ भन्नु Enrico first came to our conference last year. That's when I met him, and we've had various types of conversations. He's a now I'm going to read part of what he's provided to us as his own bio note. He is the author of 5 monographs and over 70 articles and book chapters. His work spans theology, history, and the social sciences with a focus on South Asian religion. Currently, he is a faculty member in the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies at Notre Dame Namur University, as I said, which is located in Belmont, California. Belmont is just what, half an hour south of San Francisco? Yeah. So San Francisco banda half an hour, adha ghanta tala dachinpatti. His academic journey includes doctoral training in theology, history, and business, bringing an interdisciplinary approach to his teaching and research, enriched by his commitment to exploring the intersections of faith, culture, and intellectual history. What he's presenting here, he tells me, is part of a book he's been working on. So the title of this presentation is Inhabiting Postsecular Nepal, Majoritarianism, Power, and Religion. So, over to you.
So, first of all, thank you very much for coming. Secularism is not a very fashionable topic, so I really appreciate you are here. As I said, this is my second presentation at Majoritarianism. I'm very honored to be here. I can't speak Nepali because it's too difficult, and so I will speak English, which, by the way, is my second language because I was born in Italy. So my first language is Italian. So I will speak in English, and please forgive me for not speaking your beautiful language. As I said, secularism seems a very easy topic. You know, when you read the literature about the transfer of the movement, the process between the Hindu monarchy to the secular state, it seems an easy thing. So basically, you cancel the monarchy, you build a constitution. In the constitution, you say that the Nepali state is a secular state, and you have a secularism. Actually, it's not that simple because secularism is quite a complicated topic. As I will try to show you in a very brief presentation, there are people that actually spend their life, their academic life, only talking and studying secularism. I'll just give you a couple of examples here. A Secular Age is a very important book written by a Catholic philosopher working in Canada, Charles Taylor. He spent 10 years to write this magnificent book. The other one is Burguva, who is a social theorist in India. And he spent most of his life trying to understand what is secularism in India. So secularism is a complicated story because it takes together a little bit of religion, a little bit of history, a little bit of social theory, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So it's a complicated, multidimensional topic. So I want to show you, I want to signal that the title of this book of Charles Taylor is 800 pages book, so it's very difficult to digest. But the title says A Secular Age. As you notice, it's not saying a secular space. It doesn't say that secular or secularism is a space autonomous from the religious, which is what we usually think. No? When you think about secularism, we say, oh yeah, no, of course, it's politics. Politics is completely detached from religion. The state is completely detached from religion. The public space is detached from religion. So it seems like it is a space. But Charles Taylor says is a time. I will not enter too much into this, but the fact that the secular is a secular age already gives you a little glimpse in what is secularism. Is a secular age? It means that is an historical event. Secularism is not something that exists. It's something that people produce. So is an historical event, like every other historical event. He has a birth, he has a growth, and he has a death. Is died. So basically, you have to imagine that secularism is a time in which secularism is important. There was a time when secularism was not important, and there will be a time when secularism will be no longer important. That is important because we have the tendency to think that secularism is something that when you reach, you don't go back. So you move from religion to secularism, and then secularism is the last phase of the historical progress of humanity. That's not true. Secularism is just one age of the many that a civilization, a country, a nation, a subcontinent eventually has. It's just to beginning to have a seat. We were waiting for you. You're late. No, I'm kidding. So I'm going to lose all my audience right now because I was thinking, because secularism is a very complicated topic. You are absolutely right. We need to understand, he was here before, that's why we chat a little bit. We have to understand what exactly is secularism, but most importantly, we have to understand the words that we use, what they mean. Because if we understand all these words that I'm going to use, it will become very easy for you to understand what I'm trying to say. So let's start with the first. It will be a little bit boring. I can dance maybe to entertain you in the meantime, but let's start. So the secular is usually considered a space, usually a public space that is separated and autonomous from religion. For example, politics. For example, the government. For example, well, we will see in a very few, but basically is a space. In religion, Hinduism, for example, the secular is a time. In Hinduism, there is the sacred time and there is the secular time. I give you an example. In Hinduism, you are a good husband. As a good husband, you have to go to work because you have to sustain your family. That is the secular time. It is the time that you use to do secular things. But then, because you are a good Hindu, you go to the temple. And in the temple, you meet the gods. That is the sacred time. And as you notice, there is not any separation between the secular time and the sacred time. Basically, are just dimensions of life. What modern secular does is it builds a separation, a strict separation between religion and the secular. That is the innovation that makes modern secular different than from, for example, Hindu secularism or Christianism secularism. What is secularism? So secularism is a view. If I say, I believe in God, most secular people think something like that we live in this room, in this room there is no God, but if I look up to the sky, God is over there. So basically we have two levels. The reality has two levels. This is the level where we live, and we fight, we go shopping, we go to the grocery, we cook, and then I look up, and because I am a believer, I believe that God is over there. But maybe you are not a believer, you look up and you don't see anything. So we live in a reality that is secular. Then somebody, because he's a faithful, because he's a believer, or she is a believer, he adds something which is a faith, whatever the faith is. However, secularism is also an ethic. For example, if you are a believer, you want to do what the scriptures say. But if you are not a believer, you want to be just a good person. So you want to be a morally good person. So this secularism is also a moral and ethics. And most important of all, secularism is called epistemic regime, that I can explain very easily. Epistemic regime means a way of knowledge. So if Proyash, this guy, yeah, of course, I exercised for 10 minutes to say the word right, but of course I made a mistake. So he wrote this beautiful book that I suggest. He pays me for make this announcement, so I'm going to do. Look. Now, so if you read this book, it's a book of political history, and God is nowhere to be found. Well, of course, he says, because I am a professional, serious political historian, I can put my faith, whatever the faith is, into my knowledge. This is a secular way to see knowledge. So the idea that when we study history, when we study biology, when we study religion, when we study whatever, we have to approach these matters in a secular way, which basically means that even if you are a believer and you believe that history is driven by gods, when you write, you have to forget your faith and you have to write as the gods don't exist. Okay, this is the secular epistemic regime. You already understand that maybe there is another way to write history, but I'm not entering into this, at least today. There are many different secularism, but the most important of any is political secularism. Sometimes when you read secularism, it's just a brief for political secularism. Basically means the separation between religion and politics. In Europe, we say the separation of the church and the state. The usual thing is the separation of the throne from the altar, the separation of the king from the priest. So basically, that's what you talk about when you talk about separation in Nepal, secularism in Nepal. You mention usually the separation of the state from religion. Now we go and we become a little bit more complicated, because we have to introduce another term, which is secularization. Well, technically, secularization means that you have a religious state and then suddenly you have a secular state. In reality, it's a theory. And the theory says that there is a time in the evolution of societies in which, how can I say, the society becomes a little bit more smart. It doesn't believe anymore in superstition. It doesn't believe anymore that God is moving rocks and people. And so secularization is the idea that there is a time in civilizations, societies, countries, people, whatever you want, that religion is left behind. And now you enter in a more advanced phase of progress, which is the secular. The theory basically says that this is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. So you have India, it was a focus on religion, and then there is the independence as they become a secular state. And the same with Nepal, but basically the idea is always happening this way. And it's also an historical process because there was no secular, then there is an historical event, and then you have the secular. How the secularization works, that is important. Well, the secularization works in this way. You have this mix between religion and the secular, where the religion is more important and the secular is starving. So I am a scientist. I am in a Hindu regime, and I can't be completely scientific because I have to follow some strange rules of religion. Well, the secular comes when you take all the religious element, you take it off. You take all these religious things, and suddenly the secular emerged. So the secular was already there. Even in a religious society, what you have to do is to understand that religion is superstition, religion has nothing to do with a society, religion has to do with the individual person, but it cannot rule a society. When you understand that, you are an enlightened society, you leave behind the religion, and what you find is the secular. Okay? It's called subtraction theories because basically when you take all the religions off, what you remain with is the secular. Now, why we are here? Because if all these things that I just said, which are the results of 30 years of literature, a lot of debates, hundreds of books, blah, 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 if all this is true, there is basically nothing else to say. You guys moved from a Hindu monarchy into secular state. You did exactly everything many other countries did, and there is nothing else to say other than check the details. The problem is, in the last 20 years, the theory of secularization has proved to be false. Why? Well, look around. So it started with the Islamic terrorism. Then if you go to Europe, you find that the Islamic wants to have their say in the society. In the United States, we just elected a president with the support of the evangelicals. Of course, religion didn't go away. Not religion as a private faith. Religion as a public element of politics, of anything else of the social life. So this idea that there is an inevitable progress between religion and then the secular is just not true. It's true for some time. It's true for some decades, and then suddenly you realize that religion comes back. It doesn't want to die. And so, if this is true, of course, you cannot follow the theory of secularization. You have to review and rethink what is secular, what is the secularism, what is the political secularism, because basically the intellectual tools that you use to understand what secular is prove themselves not correct. So now you have to rethink. And here is the funny part of the story, how we can rethink this thing. So there are two ideas. One is called post-secularism, and basically says that post-secularism is what comes after secularism. You remember I told you that secularism is an historical process, an historical event. There was religion, then there is the secular, and of course secularism, and then there is religion again. Basically, this is the idea. It's called also return to religion. A lot of people, even fundamentalists, for example, in India, are following this line. But there is another version of post-secularism, which is post-secularism 2, that just says that we forgot about religion. Religion has always been here. Even when we thought that religion was dead, even when we thought that the secular was everywhere, even when we thought that religion was marginalized in the private faith of the people, even then, we just forgot. We were blind. what we have to do is just to, take some good classes and see where religion is. And religion is, surprisingly, inside secularism. So secularism has never been totally secularism. That is the post-secularism, or the definition of post-secularism that I'm using in this presentation and in the book. Now, we stop now for a second. You have all the tools to understand the where we are. So it is important you understand that we had some intellectual tools. The intellectual tools are no longer working, so we are looking for something different. We found this idea that in every society, religion and the secular basically cohabit, stay together. And here is where we are. And also the way, the lens, the glasses from which I look at secularism in Nepal. I don't look at secularism in Nepal as there was religion and now there is the secular. What I look and what I see is the secular and the religion stay together in the Nepali society. Now, you want to move up to a next level, or you want we stay at this level? It's up to you.
Maybe next.
We try. Right, let's try. So, they were afraid I was not organized for this event. But I am so organized that I bring my own Sprite. Because otherwise they give me warm water, and I prefer cold Sprite. So, okay. The idea of the book I'm writing, which basically, by the way, is already finished, is what exactly is the transition between the Hindu monarchy to secular state. But I'm not interested in the political side, because he is the expert of the political side. I'm more interested in what exactly means de-Hinduization. So basically, how moving from a Hindu reality to a secular reality. This is what I'm interested in. Because as I will show in a bit, the movement that goes from the Hindu monarchy to the secular state is in reality the interweaving of two different processes. One is the political one, and the other one is what I call de-Hinduization, which is much more complex because it has to do with religion, culture, society, and I will try to explain in a very few words. But to understand where is exactly the point of this transition, at least for me, of course, I have to introduce a few other concepts that you will forgive me for, and you will forgive me for that. One is a very important political term called sovereignty, or is the same, in Latin is autoritas, because the Romans invented this thing, authority. So sovereignty is the source of legitimization of political power. So basically means this: if I am the prime minister of Nepal, I don't have the power. Somebody has to give me the power, right? So let me use the example of the President of the United States. It's much easier for me because I use this example with my students. So I am the President of the United States. Actually, I am a private citizen. One day, I received the power, enormous power of the presidency of the United States. I receive this power. I can use this power for 4 years, and then I have to give it back. So it's not mine. It's been lended to me. By who?
People.
People. People is the authorities. People is the authority. People is the justification of the fact that I have the power. So politics has the power, not the legitimization. the political structure of the state, the government, you can call it the Congress, whatever you want, is the executive power, the power to make laws, or the power of, but it doesn't have the legitimation, the sovereignty. So from where the sovereignty comes? Yes, from the people. In fact, if you look at your constitution, it says we people. Now, here is the trick. When the people became the sovereignty, the authoritas, the authority of Nepal. Because in the Hindu kingdom, the authority was not the king and was not even the priest. They had the power, but the sovereignty was divine. The gods had sovereignty. Because this was a sacred land, and it was sacred because the gods owned the land. So again, you have to follow me because I know it's a little bit tricky, but you have to also to remember that the gods have the authority. They give the authority, the justification of power to the kings, to the priest, to the high caste, and they exercise the power. But they don't have the authority. So now you understand the point. Somehow, this authority that was in the hands of the gods have to be moved in the hands of the people. And how this thing happens? Because okay, try to make it simple. It's easy to say, well, I take the king, I move out the king from the palace, I put the prime minister, I put the president, it's done. No, you transfer the power. You didn't transfer the authority. Because if you only do this, if you move the king and you put the president or the prime minister, you have a power without legitimization. So it's not justified. You have to justify your power. And the only way to justify your power is an authority that justifies your power. The authority is the people, but the authority was in the hands of the gods. How do you transfer the authority from the gods to the people? That is, in my personal opinion, the problem. You follow me? Now, I have to introduce another couple of things, and then I beg your pardon. I will go to my real presentation, which probably will end at 9 o'clock tonight. Actually, I have a dinner with this guy over there, but I will introduce him here. So, we have to make a distinction between the sacred and the holy, or sacredness and holiness. You say, why that? Well, because we are talking about gods. If you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make any difference. If you believe in God, and you are a Hindu, of course you have to do, and you have to deal with categories like the sacredness and the holiness. If you are a secular, still you have to deal with these problems, because somehow you have to justify the transfer of the authority. So what is the sacred? The sacred is the domain of the priest. It means that you take a space, you take a time in the country, in the world, and you set this part, this time, this space apart, dedicated to God. Okay? This is what the priest does. Is the administrator of this space that is not in the disponibility of the humans, but is in the disponibility of God. And of course, it becomes a space where the humans can meet God. Holiness, instead, is a different concept. Holiness means absolute purity. If you want to understand Hinduism, you have to understand holiness. Because why the high caste is better than another lower caste is the level of purity, which is how far or how near you are to the gods. It's not just a theological point, it's a social category. So why is it important? Well, it's important because when you have, for example, divine sovereignty, the category that works to organize the power is holiness. In fact, the higher holiness you have, higher you are in the hierarchy of a society. You see, when you are in a popular sovereignty, you have to come up with some other category that has nothing to do with purity. Now the last two categories, and then I finish. So what is desacralization? Because we said that secularization is moving from the religious to the secular. But desacralization is something a little bit different. Desacralization leaves the religion as it is, but it cuts the gods. It cuts the holy. It cuts the sacred. So it secularized religion. So religion doesn't die. It's still there, but there is no longer this idea that exists, the holiness exists, the sacredness exists. So basically the temple is no longer detached from the rest of society. You just can get in, spend 2 minutes and then leave. So you have secularized the religion. And then we come to the last concept, which is basic, the real point of this presentation, which is the sacralization of sovereignty. The sacralization of the sovereignty is exactly the device that shifts the divine authority from the divine authority to the popular authority. So basically, as I will explain in a second, secularization in Nepal has nothing to do with building a separate autonomous space for politics out of religion. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to show you, but I have 2 chapters in my book to explain this. That the religion is everywhere in politics in Nepal. No, it has nothing to do with that. The real point is the sacralization of the authority. Means to allow the state to move the authority from religion, from the gods, from the collective imaginary that we have, to the people. That is, when we have this terminology, I think the rest will become much easier. So this presentation that I can easily stop right now is basically says this: the transition from a Hindu kingdom to a secular state involved 2 different processes. One is the political. So the passage from monarchy to republic, which is the passage of the power. But then there is the shift from Hinduism and secularism. So secularization, in terms of desacralization, is the political instrument that allowed to make this shift from Hinduism to secularism. And so basically the presentation and the book is how the secularism is taking this authority out of the gods so that the gods have no sovereignty anymore. And this nation is no longer a sacred nation, but it becomes a secular nation, and the impact that this has on the people. I'm not talking about the people when they go to the grocery, but in what there's their identity, for example. And then how the gods, means whoever who believes in the gods, is navigating this condition in which the gods have no longer the power of salvation. And of course, the shock, the religious shock that this brings into the society. And finally, would have the implication for the secular political order. Oh, by the way, I have to thank you 2 people. Okay, I will try to say it right. I have a piece of paper and I exercise for 10 minutes. Pratyush.
Yeah.
No,
No, you got it.
90%. Okay, so the idea of his seminar is this, and not only that, but he really opened his network. This guy has an enormous network of contact, and he opened all this network for me, allowed me to write the book. Without him, it would be impossible, not only to be here, but also to write the book. I will try to say it right. So the gentleman over there is Silas Bugatti. Is right?
Silas Bugatti.
Yeah, of course.
That is right.
So he's the vicar general of a Catholic church, a Roman Catholic church in Nepal. Simply said, is the highest ranked Nepali Catholic in Nepal. I'm Catholic, that's why. And so the reason why I have to acknowledge him is because, of course, as you notice, I'm a theologian, I am an intellectual historian. I deal not with archives, but with ideas. My job is to take ideas, make framework, and see if they work. But of course, any idea, any framework has to be checked with the blood and flesh of the people. And what Father Silas did to me was to bring me around Nepal, allowing me to meet many people and to see how religion in reality is in Nepal in the secular order. So that's why I'm acknowledging these two people. Let me finish with the issues. I prepared 222 slides, but you're lucky. Work with free. So let me see, let me end with the issues. So if I'm right, the problem of Nepal, as far as the transfer from the old regime and the new regime, is what I call this desacralization of sovereignty. The passage of the authority from the gods to the people. Why? Well, first of all, there are three reasons. The first of all is that the sacralization, the passage, has to be justified itself. So basically, you have the authority of the gods. Then you have the authority of the people. You have to transfer. This transfer must be justified. And no justification was offered. So basically, the transfer of authority, which is the most important element of any political system, the authority is the most important. Without the authorities, there is no politics. The most important element of the political system in Nepal has been transferred without justification. I don't want to enter into something that you told me the first time we met last year. You said to me, sitting over there, secularism was introduced in the 2015 constitution during a last-minute negotiation. You told me this. So you see, no justification. No public debate, no referendum, nothing. A bunch of people came together and wrote a piece of paper, and writing this piece of paper, the authority was moved from the gods, has been, by the way, has been the authority of this nation for what? 200 years? Probably for 800 years. So, has been moved to the people without justification. Now, if there is no justification, you can read what I said right here, but you can understand by yourself. Without justification, the authority of the people is fragile. You might say, well, politically speaking, no. Socially, culturally, and religiously speaking, how people feel. What is called the symbolic background of a society. The fact that people feel is not right. The fact that people feel that this idea is unstable. I'm not going into the people want to go back to the king. This is not the point. The point is not stable, has no gravity inside the society. The second problem is that the desacralization of sovereignty implies the desacralization of the country. As I said before, the divine sovereignty means that the land belongs, the country belongs to the God, so the country is sacred. And so this sacred character of land has been gone, and the country has been profanized. Some people will be happy, some people are not. Some people have not the ability to articulate the point in this way. Of course, that is my job. But they feel it. They feel it that somehow the country has been, the land is a term for the country, has been profanized. It was in a certain way, it was pure, holy, and it's been profaned. Now it's being corrupted. You see the point. The last issue is less of interest for the social people and more for the politicians and probably for the political scientists and historians. Because if there is the desacralization of sovereignty, well, this desacralization of sovereignty is also the desacralization of the political thinking. But if we said that the secularization is no longer complete, well, that means that the political concepts that are used by the politicians and the academics in politics is not completely secular. It basically means that they probably are not aware that they are using some theological religious concept that has been transferred into in a secular context, but not completely. Which basically means that, despite their probably horror reaction, they are in somehow, even historians, political scientists, sociologists, and so on, unawarely, they are a little bit of theologians. All right, I stop here.
Okay, thank you, Enrico. What I'll do is, if people want to ask questions in Nepali, I will basically allow them to do that, and then I have to translate it. So I can do translation both ways. That was a good presentation. Although I haven't really paid much attention to the transition that you discussed today. It's the vocabulary that you laid out was very helpful to think through. So thanks for that. Actually, हात उठाएर प्रश्नहरु सोध्न मन छ नि सोधौँ। अथवा अंग्रेजीमा सोधौँ, मैले ट्रान्सलेटै गर्नु पर्दैन। Yes. No, go ahead.
So it was a really good presentation. Sometimes I'm really overwhelmed by the power of organization of logic, which you did very beautifully today. But I think I have to contest you on a few of the issues, of course. But something I want to put it out Oswald, is that what you said, that there was no public debate. Of course, it's true that larger part of what Dr. Pratyush Sonta just said, that the term secularization was put in the last few moments. But what we have to understand, is my belief, is that the desacralization, the term that you defined, it just didn't happen about a nation. So there was also this public debate that the whole Hindu kingdom was an exploitative institution as well. Of course, you must have mentioned it in your book thoroughly, but it was not in your presentation. And this Hindu kingdom was not actually sacred, but it was exploitative. It was also an evil from the eyes of, let's call the indigenous people, or there was a huge Maoist, let's call it insurgency in the terms of popular narratives. So there was this thing, right? So, there was already a debate that to many, maybe not as much in the intellectual works in the last 20 years, but in the ideas and experience of many people, even the what you call lower caste Dalits, was that it was really exploitative and it was not sacred. So the idea that the nation itself or the state itself is sacred and the sovereign authority was actually sacred was already being questioned since a long time. And that's the only first of the issues I'd like to discuss or hear your thoughts about. And I think it would be really important to start with this. Then maybe we can go further.
Thank you.
I respond.
Yeah.
As I said at the beginning of this presentation, kind of, if you are a secular guy, what you see in this room is what you get. But if you are a person of faith, it's not that you see upstairs in the sky there is God. You see that God is right here, in this room. That makes this place sacred. So every time you see a community, so I'm using sacred in a technical, theological way. So every time there is a community, it never doesn't matter if the community is rich or poor, if is colonizing or being colonized, if it's up or down, if it's suffering or enjoying. Every time a community comes together in the name of the gods, that place is set apart. So it's sacred. So it doesn't matter if you are a Dalit. Actually, I can say that a lot of Dalits in India are becoming Christian. I'm using India because I don't want to enter into Nepal, but even in Nepal it's actually happening the same. But let's take India is more neutral. Now, so a lot of people that think that Christianity offers in India a better chance. They become Christian, they leave behind Hinduism. But that doesn't change anything as far as the sacred is concerned. They saw the sacred in the previous situation. They see the sacred in the second situation. What changes is not the sacred, is the holiness. Because this is the big difference between Christianity and Hinduism. Hinduism thinks that when you are the holiness, when you are pure, you risk of corruption. So you have to build a distance between you, the pure, and the corrupting force against you. So you have to build a distance, you have to build a wall, because you don't want to be corrupted. So why the Dalits are moving to Christianity? Because the idea of Christianity is that holiness goes exactly where the corruption is. Not corruption, political corruption, of course. Whereas there is misery, where there is marginalization. And the idea is that holiness goes there and clean. So, of course, the Dalits see in Christianity a chance. How can I say a chance in a system where if you are corrupted because you are not poor, you stay corrupted for the rest of your life? Of course, you look at Christianity because Christianity has this idea that you don't keep this holiness, this purity, all for yourself, but you bring this holiness in the deepest of the corruption side of the world, and you save it. As you see, has nothing to do with being, empowered, being. Is a religious view of reality. I don't know if I answered.
Do you have part two to your question?
I would like to clarify this question. What he means by Hinduism, it means the caste system. When you say
Well,
caste
of course, I'm not
you're
talking.
born into, you're born as a Loban. You can't buy your freedom. At least in black slavery, the blacks, they could buy their freedom with money. you're born a truth in Hinduism, there's no chance.
Uh, just to add on to what he said. So when I said Hinduism, I did not necessarily mean only casteism. What I also meant was the if you are setting up this premise that this state is in the minds of people has an authority that's based on gods who are holy or maybe sacred, then to the eyes of many, the same sacredness was not sacred from the get-go, from the starting point. That's what I meant. That was actually where my question was targeted towards.
I cannot answer because
India has this hierarchy system, and they talk there's priest, at the
yeah.
bottom there's noble.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the normal Hindu structure of society. Then if somebody doesn't believe in it, fine.
You refer to our conversation from last year. I don't remember the particular formulation, but what I must have said, or if there is a chance to explain it all over again, I didn't mean to. And there is a narrative going around by people who love our former king and want the monarchy to be reinstated. They say that obviously they say, oh, there was no referendum done before this big decision was done, and nobody had demanded for it. As a historian, I mean, I must point out that the discourse on for people wanting to live in a secular state, there's a long history of it. So it didn't come from thin air. I think politically, some people, historically and factually, some people would be right if they said that the 19-day movement of 2006, during that movement, the demand for secularism was not in the highest priority of things. But we have a colleague who doesn't work here anymore, Dr. Bhaskar Gautam, who wrote an article in one of the newspapers here. I forget the title of it. Basically saying where social movements for equality, if you take them and understand them in a particular way, the demand for a secular state is built into those demands. I don't know if I referred that article to you when we were having this conversation about relevant things for you to read following your visit last year, but I'm just issuing this as a clarification. Did you want to ask something?
No, I was just trying to build a context. Instead of secularism, I like to talk about culture, the difference between culture and religion, because I truly believe that culture predates every religion that we know, right? In old times, the culture used to be more barbaric than the religion. Later, with time, the culture changes, but religion is still the same guy. It never changes. That's why I prefer culture. That is something we have to promote.
So I prepared this slide, and then I decided not to use it for political reasons. So a few days ago, last week, I was here for the annual conference of Majoritarianism. And there was a professor, Janak, right?
Yeah.
This is simple for me to say, Janak, okay. So Janak, right, that he was commenting the presentation of a student, or PhD student or something, master student.
Yeah.
And he made a comment, and he said, no, it seems like in your presentation, it seems like, in your paper, it seems like the king is still here. There is no king in Nepal. This is what he said. And I was sitting right there, and I said, oh no. Oh no. Of course the king is still in Nepal. Of course the king is still in Nepal. Because the political process are much bigger, stronger, greater, and slow than just the change of the political structures. Of course the king is still here. Can you imagine? Go to London and ask them if the king is Charles. Good luck. They will tell you, no, the queen is still Elizabeth. But he's dead. Yeah, but the queen is Elizabeth. So, of course, the king is still in Nepal. And my point is the gods are still in Nepal. Of course they are still here. There are many different forms. Because you are a believer, you believe in the gods. You are not a believer, but still believe in some structure of the society that is still consisting in the gods. So again, to go back to your point, we have to understand at which level we are talking. If we are talking about, yes, I don't think it's sacred, blah, blah, blah. Yes, maybe there are people that even 50 years ago believed that the Hindu structure was not sacred. But I'm not talking about that because I'm not a researcher, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not asking for people, do you believe in God? What I'm trying to say is different, is that, believe it or not, the gods were already there 50 years ago. The gods are still here, in a form or another. Just to give you an idea, the transfer of authority, the classical example is Europe. The transfer of authority between the church and the state, it took 3 centuries. Not politically, because politically you just need to go to the king, cut the head of the king, and put a prime minister. So it's easy. That's easy. But to transfer the authority, so that basically the people don't think that God is really the ultimate authority of the society. It took 3 centuries. Because yes, you go to vote, and then you go home, and still you have in your mind a structure of a world in which the God is there, and is the ultimate authority. And so, even if 50 years ago some people believe in something else, I think that in general, that was the structure.
Could you, let me put it this way. Could we think of what has transpired in Nepal in the most recent past, and your use of the term post-secular in the following manner, which is to say that
I'm organized there.
there was a need to bring a rather devastating conflict, internal conflict, to an end. And you said that during your first trip to Nepal 20 years ago, you saw firsthand. You had first-hand encounters with what the state then used to call as Maoist insurgents, and like you encountered them in Nepal. So, as the 2015 Constitution is a document of it's a, how should I put it, a compromise document that tried to make a lot of stakeholders, political stakeholders in Nepal happy. And one of those stakeholders demanded that we get away with the idea of the king, the idea of a Hindu kingdom, and then we put the word secular in the constitution. Now, your point that the gods are present then, the gods are present now, I think every Nepali in this room, even if he or she is not a believer, goes back to home and lives with people who are believers, right? So, in every minute in the house, there is a constant reminder that while you might not believe, there are other members in the family who do. And so, could we have an understanding of post-secular where, just like the Western democracies now are hypocrites when it comes to human rights and the rest of the whole human rights regime, that secularism is also a hypocritical idea where it's applied to describe a political arrangement that actually doesn't exist. But a lot of us believe that it does, and then go on with our lives. Could you live with that sort of make-believe thing? Because we actually live with make-believe things in many other regimes of life. Why not also on the domain of secularism?
First of all, because the answer is because it's not going to happen. It's a factual thing. So if you look around what's happening in the world, you will see that religion doesn't die.
No.
You try desperately to kill religion, and
no,
religion
but
is...
in the way I put it, I don't subscribe to the 1960s varieties of modernist or modernization theories who said religion would die. I don't, there is enough, and I refer to the fact that we all live in households where you might be a non-believer, but your mother, your spouse, your grandfather is a believer. So I am not, to subscribe to my worldview, you don't have to come to terms with the fact that religion, you have to come to terms with the fact that there is religion everywhere, but you don't have to subscribe to the view that religion would die.
But the difference, the point is that in your mind, religion is a private thing. So basically, I go to the parliament, and this is a secular situation. I am a believer, but I act like a secular. Then I stand up, I go to the church, and I pray God. Now, what is not dying is the religion in the public area. That is not dying. The religion doesn't want to be cornered in a private angle. So to answer your question, religion doesn't want to be marginalized. Has been tried in the last 50 years, and it didn't work out. So your point is why we cannot live in a secular order. Translation. Why we cannot be each of us with his own or her own faith, but we have a space which is secular, which is independent from religion. The answer is because it's not going to happen. Simple.
No, I'll try one more time. I think you misunderstood me in the sense that I'm saying we don't have to actually even pretend that religion is private. But the public includes people who are non-believers. And the non-believers can believe that we can live in a political arrangement which has been described as a secular arrangement or a secular republic with religion all around him or her. In the same way that we believe that there is human rights when the regime is collapsing right around us. So I'm saying if a state is a political arrangement of compromises, we might as well also have that compromise in the domain of religion. That's all I'm saying.
I have to tell you a secret. It's a confidential information. So, because
Protius
organized this seminar, whatever it is, to reciprocate, I invited him out for dinner, but he didn't accept it. I think he didn't accept it because he wanted to see first what I was going to say.
No.
I'm joking. I'm joking. But to answer your point, what I'm going to say, probably you don't like it. And Nepali secularism is not liberal. That is your point. What you are trying to frame is a liberal secularism. And as much as I could, reading everything I could read about secularism in Nepal, coming here, spending time, looking around, talking with even with a member of a parliament, of your parliament I spoke with. The point is, I'm sorry, your secularism is not liberal. I know you try. I know there are a lot of people that try. 90% of the literature on secularism basically says this. Now we are secular. Why we are not more secular? Well, because you are not a liberal secularism. That's it. In fact, I didn't want to bother you, but I came with a different idea. I call it secular majoritarianism. Secular majoritarianism is a contribution. I hope the publisher like it. So, secular majoritarianism means this. You have a majority religion, or a religious majority. And the government needs somehow to adjust to this present dominance of one single religion. And so, in some way, it cannot be completely equal to all religions, and it cannot be completely open to free religion to everybody, like the Christians know in Nepal. So what it does is an accommodation. So there is a basic freedom for everybody, and then some religion has more freedom. There is a kind of equality between all members of religions, but some religions are more equal than others. Look at the Constitution, Article 24. So I could, sorry?
Sanatan Dharma.
Yeah. So I call it secular majoritarianism because it's just a word to try to explain that it's secular, but in somehow with a preference with the major religion or religions. But secular majoritarianism also introduced some modernization into, in this case, Hinduism. So he wants to transfer, modernize Hinduism to create the space for the secular state. But he doesn't want to push Hinduism away. He just wants to secularize a little bit Hinduism, to modernize Hinduism, but without taking all the privilege of Hinduism out. So a liberal secularism put everybody on the same level. Everybody is equal, everybody is free. Good luck with that in Nepal. So it's not. So to answer to your point, yes, if you were in a liberal secularism, yes, but you are not.
The name and the implementation is different. The democracy in America, the democracy in India and in Nepal. The term is same, the name is same, but the implementation is wrong, right? It's the same thing with the secularism.
There is a, you can make a good point that in India is happening the same.
In terms of democracy?
No, in terms of majoritarianism, in all South Asia is in this situation. If you go to Pakistan, if you go to Bangladesh, it's the same thing. So the state is or completely on the side of religion, or it tries to detach itself from religion, but maintain some privilege for the major religion.
So can we say it's a theist secularism, but our model in Nepal?
Sorry, I didn't follow that word.
Theist, theocratic secularism.
Well, I don't know, Father. I spent 1 year to come up with secular majoritarianism, I think. I stay with that. Otherwise, I have to study for another year.
You have
Did
to
you-
find
did
it
you-
already.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, basically, yes, when we look in South Asia, between India and Nepal, we see although India is abroad, it's a democracy, but religion is playing a main role, we see. And similarly here, the transition we have made, but at the same time, we are not fully secular. So that's why I was saying maybe theist secularism, and as Enrico has coined it, majority secularism.
Honestly, there is another. In the book, I made a case of Christians because obvious reason, I'm Christian. But there is also the case of what you guys call the identity politics. So identity politics has been the politics of the last 20 years. So identity politics is a problem for liberal secularism. Because secularism, liberal secularism, has this idea, as you said, that we are all equal. So basically, I'm no longer Christian, I'm no longer Muslim. Yes, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian, but most importantly, I'm secular. So the secular is a universal category. Is a space where we can talk. And then I am a Hindu, I am a Buddhist, I am a Dalit, I am whatever you want to call it. I am indigenous, I am. Well, unfortunately, identity politics is exactly the opposite. The identity politics said, no, I want to be recognized as I am. I don't want to be mediated through secularism. I want secularism to be a mechanism that allowed me to have more representation and more power. So this is secularism, but it's not liberal secularism. Because secular liberalism says, hey, you know what? You all come in this room, and then we clean up a little bit. You still are a Muslim and so on, but we are secular now. And because we are the same, we have the same freedom, we are equal, we have the same rights, we have the same duties. But in the moment in which you say, no, I am a Buddhist, I want you to recognize that. I want to be represented as a Buddhist. Of course, there is no longer the universal idea of the liberal secularism. So, yes.
Yeah, let's start with somewhere we agree, right? Because I do
Now
actually,
I feel better.
Yeah, I
I
actually
can go home
believe
and
that religion is directly connected to politics everywhere and everywhere. So we were in middle of this Mitter-Baz Andolans. I don't want to bother you with what it is. So we were in this, let's call it a village of Kuswas and Koiris. I don't know if you know the caste, but in the Indo-Gangetic Plains, they are in India part of other backward caste. We don't have such decree in here. So they were supposed to be traditional followers of the Shiva, right? The god Shiva. But what we found was there was this trend going on in there. It was like Ram Dharan Garne. That means they wanted to be part of more Krishna's line of thought of Hinduism, let's call it. Why? This started particularly because in the 1940s and as recent as 1990s, so what caught up was that Yadavs got more power in Bihar, right? So what happened is they wanted to more align themselves, the Koiris and Kuswas, with the idea of being the descendants of Lord Krishna. So this movement started and it's here in Nepal now. So these people, they have some practices and stuff that they have changed from what they traditionally. What I wanted to, from this example, point you towards is that how, as you have been talking to a lot of people, you have been evaluating literature and talking to policymakers as well. How do you see change of religion or in the minds of people playing part in change of majoritarianism, like the number games and power, not the other way around, that the past religion has some effect to it, but they change the religion as the to be safe, the Dalits change the religion to Christianity in India or something like that. So how do you see this process unfolding here in Nepal, especially in identity groups as well, where they go back to the mundum instead of what was imposed to them, quote unquote, and they try to form it from there. Have you noticed something like that?
So I was very happy that we found something in agreement, and then no, the problem is I don't know how to answer your question, because it is clear that what happened in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years has changed religion in general in Nepal. It's clear that the religion in general, Hinduism in particular, is more secularized than it was 50 years ago. But my real point is that the secularization or desacralization of religion takes centuries. So it's not a process that you can compress in 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. What you can do is to write the constitution, you can change the constitution, you can do whatever you want. But then you build like a two level of society, the legal level and the factual level. The factual level is, as you said before, what the people believe. The mind, you said, the mind of the people. So this is really my point. I didn't really address very much the case of identity politics because it's not my topic. I can suggest you some very good books that are addressing this point that might eventually also address this particular example you are taking. However, my experience in the United States is that identity politics is not good. Identity politics is bad because it fractured the society. So I understand that maybe Nepal is a different case because we had this monolithic Hindu situation, actually a fraction of Hinduism that was dominating everything. You had to basically equalize the society, offer a possibility to different groups, tribes, nations, whatever. I understand that. But, and I don't enter into this because it's not my topic, I'm not an expert, great anthropologists, social anthropologists that do a great job on that. My personal experience in the US is identity politics is bad because identity politics is, by definition, stress the difference. So identity is, I am and I am A and you are B. And so every time you stress the difference, unfortunately, you create the foundation for conflict. And so that is my only comment.
Okay, so yes, please.
Basically, in the context of Nepal, it is not that Nepal reached to secularism or post-secularism within a day. There must be some kind of process, procedure to raise Nepal into secularism or post-secularism. So, do you find any kind of situations or evidences in the context of Nepal which we can call pre-secularism or something like that, or is there any concept like pre-secularism?
Pre-secularism?
Yeah.
Means before?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. There are parts of the country, as far as I understand, in which what is called modernization is still not intense as it is, for example, in Kathmandu. Yes, but this happens all the time. So modernization is another word for urbanization. So the cities start with many different things, and then you move the change into the rural, and it takes time. In some countries, it takes longer than others. Probably in your country, it takes more because as the system of roads is not very good. The transferring between the capital to the periphery of the state is difficult. So that means that some communities can still live in a pre-secular reality. Yes, of course.
So how do you like to define the term pre-secularism then? Just like we got the concept of secularism and post-secularism. If you had to provide the definition of pre-secularism, then how do you like to define it?
Well, honestly, I stay with minimized post-secularism, not because post-secularism for me is also your pre-secularism, if you like. So it's everywhere where the religion and the secular stay together. However, as I said before, the secular and the religious has always, or the sacred, has been always together. But if you go into this, what you call indigenous or pre-secular communities, what you see is that there is an open movement between the secular and the sacred. So that is basically the definition of pre-secular, if you like. So there is no separation. They are distinct, but you can move from.
your last question.
So, did you mean that it's a cycle? So,
Well, I'm not, we have an historian right here, who can probably answer better than I do. If there is a cycle, the Greeks believe the history is a cycle. I have a much more convoluted idea. I think that, I don't know. I think the future is
So
open.
let's keep this the last question.
The last
I
question
agree.
received $10,000.
I relate to your lecture and I have missed a large portion of your lecture.
That is a sin.
Even though whatever I heard in the last part, that is my question. I have actually two questions. Means you have been US and you have seen the rise of Trump again elected as a president, which was an impossible task, but even though he has done it, and we see that a large portion of his supporters come from the right-wing groups or Christian groups who support his ideologies, as we know that. Maybe I am wrong, if you correct me. So, as you have said that identity politics, in fact, fractures society. And after the Enlightenment period, the secularism which comes to Europe and afterwards it goes to every part of the world. How do you find that a devout Christian, European Christian or Western Christian has problem with secularism? My first question. And second question, do you find the ethnic identity politics in Nepal as a good development, or you find it as a negative development?
Sorry, what is
The
that?
ethnic identity politics, because ethnic groups are trying to assert their identity as well as demanding the space which the Hindu state did not provide them when it was.
I think we've understood your question now.
So for the second question, as I said before, I'm not an expert. So there are great social anthropologists that study this idea, if the identity, ethnic politics, they call it the politics of ethnics. It's called in many different ways, as being the mark of the last 20, 30 years in Nepal. I can't say it's right or wrong, it's good or bad, because I'm not an expert. I just said my personal experience in the United States. That's it. I was not talking as a scholar. The first question is more interesting, but it's easy to answer. So the question is, are Western Christians have a Western Christian problem with secularism? No, absolutely no. All Christianity in the West has been secularized. So I don't. If they had problems in the 18th and 19th centuries, I think this problem has been solved in a way or another in the 20th century. So I don't think they have a problem.
I'm afraid I have to stop here now, the formal seminar. But if Enrico is free, you can, and if he's willing to hang around, you guys can keep talking to him.
So you leave, you lock the
No,
door,
I
and we stay until tomorrow.
I of course don't lock it, but
Well, I can share my second Sprite.
I do have to go at 4:30. So
That's why. Okay.
So others are absolutely welcome to stay and talk to Enrico if he has free time. So on behalf of everybody in the room, I thank Enrico for this I would call thought-stimulating presentation. When is the book coming out, or what's the status?
Will be 2006, 26.
So you have a publisher or
That's a Routledge.
Routledge? Okay. And so you've submitted the manuscript, or
No, I came here to collect your feedback, your
Oh.
precious feedback.
So-
And then, only then, after the mark of your approval and justification, after your authority, I can finally send my paper to the publisher.
As we all know, Routledge likes to sell his books, the hardcover ones, for $200 or more. So, on behalf of everybody, when your very expensive book comes out, the first copy will mail for our library, and we'll get to read it there.
Of course.
Thank you, Enrico, and thank you, everybody.